Hey, overthinkers. It's Sweets and Lisa here.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Lise, how you doing?
Sweets, here we are. I feel like it's been a while since
Been a
we've
while.
actually recorded together, and
Yes.
we are
Life has been
right now,
lifing, as the youth says. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like whenever you're listening to it, we're recording it in May, and both of us are educators, and
Yeah.
May is May.
May is Maying. Yes.
Yeah,
There's no
it's
doubt about it. But I'm
doing
glad we
its
got to
thing
get together today and overthink. It's been a while since we overthought together.
together. But as we
Together.
know,
That's right. That's right. Well, you still receive texts from me where my overthinking is happening, but yeah, so.
this is why we're together because I'm always there with you.
For
Yeah,
sure. So I got a word today that I want to unpack, and it's energy. So
that's a good
yeah,
one.
that's a good one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, let me think about energy. So when I'm thinking about that word, the first thing that comes to mind is lack.
It's
It's
totally,
like
it's
where
depletion of
did it all
energy.
yeah, where
Yeah.
did it all go? So, but that could just be my age speaking. But the other thing that came to mind was just like light. Like
Mm.
whenever I think of the word energy, I think of the word light. Like where are you pointing your light or where where are you putting your focus? And like where
Yeah.
you energy to me means focus,
Yeah.
but that might not be where you're going with it.
No, I think I've been thinking about it a lot since I had my conversation with our first guest. Um, and in general, I think like it comes up on my social media stuff all the time. Like, where are you putting your energy? And who are you giving your energy to? And, things like that. And I really started to think through, like, like life, how precious life is. And I was just thinking about, is there times where I find myself pushing through that depletes my energy or trying to make something happen that again depletes my energy, but it wasn't for me in the first place?
Okay, I have so many.
And
Yes.
yes. And I thought through in my head and I thought, am I a victim to myself thinking, oh, I need more energy or whatnot, but am I gravitating towards things because I think I have to, I think I should, I think something is for me and it's not. And then at the end of it, I'm like exhausted and I don't know why, right? Or I know why, but I think this is just the way life is supposed to be. And I think in today's world, I get nervous. Everybody is really tired. And so I wanted to have a discussion. I wanted you to think out loud with me what you think about energy or your own energy and what you give your time to. And does it make sense for you? And ditto for myself. So,
Yeah, it's a great question. It makes me, so the connection I immediately made in my head, I don't know why, but I went to the concept of like, as I understand it, and you probably know more about this than me, but like introvert personality versus
mm,
extrovert personality. So, in other words, like I consider myself an introvert that can do extroverted things, but
mhm,
I get my energy from, like, I get recharged when I'm by myself, when I'm doing something quiet or being by myself,
right.
doing things that I need to do. And I don't get energy from being with people. Being with people is great and
Mhm.
fun, but it doesn't charge me up. It actually drains the battery. So it made me, the connection I made was not with people, but like when you talked about what am I putting my energy toward,
Mhm. Mhm.
I think it's like when you're doing something that you want to be doing, when you're doing something that is hard, but gives you that you get excited about. It's a thing that you want to do that feels good to you. I can put as much energy into it and I don't feel drained. I
Right.
feel energized by it. I feel like a creative energy or a flow. And that concept, obviously, for educators too, that idea of flow of just like you're in that right spot. You're putting the energy in the thing that it needs to go in, where I would put the same amount of energy into something that I feel like I have to do, but don't really want to.
That's it.
And then at
That's
the
it.
end of it, I feel drained. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It makes perfect sense. I think for me too, I think about those things that like, so for me, I would say that I'm actually get my energy from people, But it's when it's like a reciprocity of sorts that I'm experiencing in terms of my extrovertness. It's not where I'm actually like if I'm needing to take care of someone in a posture. And I think there's a huge differentiator of where my energy goes in that. In fact, then I need to actually take care of myself more and retreat when I'm actually giving a lot more of myself, but it's not reciprocal. It's more of a posture of here, how can I help you?
Mm.
And then so I resonate with,
Thank you for making that distinction because you're right. There are people that I feel energized being around, but it's less often than not.
yes.
So then I'm reflecting on what you just said about like why is that? Why do certain people drain me more? Yeah.
I was at a conference, I think 2 weeks ago, and I sat next to this woman and I was like, hi, how are you? She's like, oh, my back really hurts. I got in a car accident 2 years ago and it's never really
I'm
recovered.
not laughing at a
And
car accident.
no, no,
Sorry.
not at all. She started talking and I was like, so I took a posture because I was like, okay, I'm here to listen. I'm here to give a little of myself and my time to do that. But knowing that that isn't going to be something that potentially feeds my energy, right? But it doesn't mean that I retreat from that. But the question I have is like a little bit of like, well, how often, to your earlier point, when you're in a flow state versus when you're not in a flow state, of like, how often can you stay in that non flow state before it starts to take a toll in your whole being and like your life, right? Where it's a continuous energy drain. But then the question I have is it something where you have to get out of a situation, or is it something where you have to reframe or put a boundary around what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
go
think
ahead.
that's important for all of us to be thinking about in the world right now because energy and attention are it's the currency, right now. So everybody is trying to get our attention. I mean, everything is trying to draw upon our attention and energy. Like if you're putting energy somewhere, you're potentially like making money for someone. And so I think we need to be more protective of where our energy goes. So when I think about where my energy goes when I am not working
Hmm.
versus when I am working. And I think you're more focused maybe in one spot or another based on the role you're in. So if I'm thinking of work, it's like, it's a great question because you have to work, I
Yep,
think.
you
Most of
do.
us have to work.
Yeah,
And we work with kids. And so there are things in school that kids need to do
that's right.
that they don't always love doing.
That's right.
So our jobs as educators are always focused on how do we create the conditions for learning that
Hmm.
get most kids into that learning and flow state where
Yeah.
it's happening. It's
Yes.
happening for them. They're learning,
Yes.
they're engaging, they're doing it. So our energy is focused on designing those environments. But
It's
what
true.
happens to the person's energy that's designing?
That's it. Yeah.
So then does it flow up? And our leadership is, which I think is what we're doing. We're spending a lot of time creating the conditions
Yeah.
for success in whatever area. So for you, special education, for me, kind of looking broadly. And sometimes I think we can frame it for ourselves to be, you can put yourself in a mindset where you're like, all right, I can use some creativity because
Yeah.
that's something that feeds me.
That's right.
Well, for me, I can say I can be creative in these ways because I know creativity feeds my energy. But for somebody else, it might be I can put a system in place and that feeds them. Or I can, be relational in this space in a way that maybe a different approach and that maybe that feeds you, that being relational and creating relationships. I think in order to get yourself into a state of flow though, you have to have a real good solid sense of who you are and
Mm,
what feeds you in any
yeah.
given circumstance and be able to assess your surroundings. And
Yeah.
most of us are working with other humans. So it's like you have to know yourself, you have to know where you're coming from, and then you have to be able to kind of read the room
Yeah.
and whether or not there's a capacity to shift it, right?
I really think there's something to be said about that because there's a level of when I think about this topic, I think about Alignment, I agree with you. An alignment of knowing yourself, starting with yourself. What do you value? You know, we talk a lot about values in on this podcast, but like who you are, figuring out some of those things. Because the other piece is I wonder is if we're not spending the time we need on the things that bring us energy is because we're doing things that we think like that should value. Like I had a friend who was dating someone and she's like, yeah, but he doesn't read books. And I was like, well, neither do you. And she's like, yeah, but aren't they supposed to read books? And I was like, no, like you have to actually pick what like aligns with you, right? And she was wasting all this energy thinking it should be a certain way. And I think when you know yourself more, you start to say, it's not just as important to say what is for me, it's also to say what is not for me. And I also thought about that woman that I sat next to at this conference because I made a conscious choice to sit next to her and listen. And I think sometimes we fall victim and we think, well, I have to. And the reality in that particular case, I didn't have to. I had a bunch of choices. I could have gotten up and said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I could have gone to a different table. I could have turned and talked to the other person. But instead, I got worse. Like I could have gotten worse in my head and be like, gosh, now I'm stuck here. Now I'm whatever. And I think that that makes our energy deplete more because we think that we're a victim to our circumstances because we're not creating the agency and autonomy that we already have. We're waiting for someone to give us permission to use our energy the way we think we should.
Yeah, wow, you brought up
I
like
know it's loaded. It's loaded. It's like,
well, the victim part
yeah,
of it, I think we are all guilty
totally.
of at times of thinking that we're a victim to our circumstances. And obviously, in some circumstances more than others, right? Like there's, we feel like, because we obviously have choices in every situation, and obviously some of those choices are impractical
Right.
and not kind. And, like not, we would, if we made those choices, we wouldn't be living into our values. And so there's the conflict, right? So I love that you said the agency that we have. I think it's important to always have that presence of mind that we do have agency in any situation. Like we can make changes
Hmm.
to our circumstances most of the time. Like,
Yes.
at least small changes, and the smallest being how we're looking at it.
Yeah.
It's like we talked before the podcast about, um, in any role that you have, mother, friend,
Yes.
daughter, superintendent, whatever it is, there are other people that are doing that role.
Yes.
And when I look at other people doing that role, they don't do things the same as I do. And so I think sometimes we get pigeonholed into thinking that I have to do things this way. It's like, but I'm doing that to myself. There are many different ways to be a mother. There are many different ways to be a friend. There are many different ways to be a superintendent. I'm making choices based on what my values are and what my experiences have been. And I'm living this role in the way that I'm living it because of who I am. And I don't have to, but it's healthy for me to recognize that.
Yes.
To get myself out of that, I have no choice agency. I'm a victim here
But I
mentality.
love what you're saying is that like it actually doesn't just because you share the title of a role with someone, whether it be mom and mom or superintendent, it doesn't actually mean you have to run your life in the same cadence because it doesn't the backdrop of your values like Emma, I think her last name is Grande, she's the co-founder of Skims and she just came out with a
Yes,
new really
yes.
good
Oh,
book.
I just heard a podcast about her.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I
It
just
was
bought
on
her book.
Oprah's podcast.
Yes, it's a great book if those of you who just are doing some of this work about starting with yourself. But she talks about how, right, she doesn't take and again, knowing also economically she's in a different spot, but she doesn't actually take her kids to school, but she makes it a priority to leave at 5 o'clock because the family time at that time or sitting for breakfast. Again, circumstances being very different in everybody's lives. But it's because she values this particular notion of family in a different way. But if you stopped, you could pass judgment and be like, how could you not take your kid to school? Or how could you not be ready to lay out their clothes in the morning or whatnot? And it doesn't matter. Like it matters on how you want to do life. And if you get stuck being like, well, Lisa does it that way. So I have to really follow that, but it doesn't fit the life that you live, right? It actually isn't. You will spend a lot of time being really miserable and depleted because of that. And I think that I wonder if some of the reason we're really tired is because the increase too of just how other people are living their lives. We're saying, God, I didn't cut the crusts off the sandwiches. I'm a terrible mom or whatever. And it's not true. That's not rooted in truth.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the root of much of that is that social comparison. And there's just so many more avenues for it now. Like
Hmm.
when I think about my parents being parents, early on and when my oldest brothers and sisters were born, they're just the mechanism for social comparison was your neighborhood,
Yes.
like the
Yes.
people you lived around or your family.
Completely.
And that was who you sort of like measured yourself against. To
Yes.
be able to measure yourself against anybody in the world with any resources in any context, you can measure up or you can measure down. It all depends on what you want to look at. And I think the human brain, you'll know more than me, but I think the human brain is wired to measure up, like to look at the people who are doing better than us and to see our shortcomings more
Yes.
than to look at ourselves and say, actually, I'm doing okay.
Good.
There are
Yeah.
different ways to do this, and I feel like I'm doing okay. And I think even just the rise of books on parenting or books on teaching or resources, like the amount of information has exploded in the
Yeah.
last 40
Yeah.
to 50 years that we have access to.
Yeah.
And I don't think our brains are wired to make good decisions with
No,
that much information and knowing that many people or feeling like we know that many people. We're just not
it's not.
capable of it.
We're taxing our working memory, right? We're just constantly being fed by things that like one day it's like, oh, maybe I'll try that, or maybe tomorrow I'll do that. And I think that that's the worry in terms of, I think my friend Tracy, our mutual friend Tracy, she told me an example. She used to play soccer, and this really resonated with me yesterday. She said her coach would teach the team that if you see the player start to only focus on the ball, that
Hmm.
means that she doesn't see a way out because there's too many people coming towards her
Yeah,
versus lifting her head to be able to see the goal and whatever. And I
great.
think what we're
That's a great
doing,
metaphor.
it's a great metaphor. I mean, like I was like, oh, that's so perfect because I think what we're doing a lot of is we're focusing so much on the ball and being like, I'm not good enough. I need more energy to do this. I need to look like this. I need to do this, that we're not lifting our head and actually, like a lot of things, looking at other people, like the metaphor of the faces, right? Faces, experiencing life, looking at like the big picture of things, right? Like in the big picture, is it going to matter if I looked completely put together versus when I go to a restaurant having a blast with my friends, right? And I think it's like coming back to the sense of people and presence versus this idea of like compare and, oh, I've lost all my energy to really be the person
Yeah.
who I was even meant to be.
Yeah, I think some people might argue that social media or the internet have allowed us to see more, but it's an illusion.
Yes.
It's an illusion. We all know it's an illusion. We all know that we put out our best self. Well, maybe not me today. I don't feel like I did my hair that well, but like we all put out our best image online or on social media. And so we think we're broadening
Yeah.
what we're looking at, the
Yes.
field of vision, but we're actually narrowing it down to seeing everyone's perfect moments
Hmm.
and
They're
and
setting up a
measuring
camera
ourselves.
to get up in the morning, those wake up videos, like when people are pretending they're stretching and it's like
It's
you set
literally the
the camera.
beginning of what was
Yes.
it? The beginning of Bridesmaids, where she
Yes.
gets out of bed and like puts on makeup and gets back in and is like, "Oh, I just woke
Totally.
up." Yeah, it's exactly that.
Exactly.
And so we're all measuring ourselves against these fake things, and this is not a new concept. But to your point of where do we put our energy then?
Hmm. Hmm.
Instead of putting it into the literal bodies around us, the house that we live in, the neighborhood context, our friends and community, just somebody said it a while ago this year of like, I shouldn't know as much as I know about what's happening halfway across the globe without knowing more about what's going on with the people that live next to me.
I love that.
And that is like the truth, man. I mean, like,
Truth.
I need to know more about my neighbors. I
Yes.
need to know more about the people that live on my block and where they're struggling.
Yeah.
Um, and if we all did that,
Yes.
we would
Yeah.
all be in a better spot because we'd be more connected to humans and humanity. We'd be more grounded in our own truth and reality, and we'd be less like tunnel visioned
Mhm.
into this money making machine that's grabbing our time,
I
you know?
We would actually even be more regulated individuals. I think if we were never meant to be this like staring at everybody's everything. And I think that at a level it does really dysregulate us because we can only handle, to your point of like we were talking about cognitive load, you can only handle so much. And when you actually come back to, it's like when I went to the Grand Canyon. It was the best thing that I could have ever done for myself because I just the majesty of it made me feel
Yeah,
small, right? And I think when
yeah.
you're talking about like in general, like when you have,
Perspective.
yes, it's just the perspective. So I
Yeah,
just,
no, I couldn't agree more. And I think in a very practical sense, you and I have celebrated that we live close now.
yes,
And I
yes,
have I have good friends that I've never been able to live close to. My friend Meg, I haven't been able to live close to since we
yeah,
lived together in college.
that's
And
so
it
fun.
makes a difference when
It
you
does.
are close in proximity and I can come over in two
That's
minutes
it.
and we can chat and I could be home and it's an hour and we've gotten 50 minutes of quality time together.
Amazing.
And I want my energy to be there, you
That's it.
know?
That's it.
And I think it is all about what you choose to pay attention to, where you put your energy, where you shine your light in the real context of your life.
In the real.
What can you actually impact? Who can you actually connect with? The parasocial thing that's happened to us
Yeah.
is not healthy. And we see it happening with kids. We see it now happening with AI.
Yeah.
And I do think I just read a study. I hope it's a real study. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not, but it feels real. Um, that Gen Z kids, and I see it with my own kids, there's a longing for 90s, 80s, early
Mm,
2000s life that had some tech built in, right? There was some convenience and technology built in, but we weren't connected all the time. We
yeah.
weren't on all the time. Like there's a nostalgia for that, and they didn't even experience it, which I
That's it.
think, how do we get back to that for our kids?
They're really like, I think everybody's like, it's almost like a call to home, for lack of better words,
Yeah.
where we're really wanting to live our own lives and do that well. And I
Hmm.
think when you concentrate on that, like to your point, is like, will your energy be that depleted? I'm not sure if it will. If you're really concentrating, if you're putting your full attention, but when you're doing a half here and a half here, you will be tired at the end versus actually putting it, your full energy to your present moment for the life that you were given,
Yeah.
right? And how precious it is because not everybody can say that, right? And like when you have this moment, you cherish it, and that's all the energy you need for that point in time. So,
It's when somebody
okay.
says the only real moment is now.
It is that.
This
That's
is
it.
it.
That's a perfect way to end it. Like that's it, and that's it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I love this
folks,
conversation.
we love being here together, and we hope that your parasocial relationship with us is fruitful. Truly, in the end, at the end of the day, we do hope these conversations help open up conversations with actual people in your life, because that's all we're doing. We're having a conversation with somebody in our life and just recording it for hopefully opening up those questions for you too. And we'd love to overthink with
Yep.
you anything that you're thinking about. And we know not everyone feels connected to other people right now. And so if this is a way that's helping you connect and have conversations, then that's a good thing. Send us the things that you want us to talk about, and we'd love to think about those things with you. So until then, let's give ourselves some grace because it's hard out there.
That's it. Till next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.